We pivot to the race for the White House now, where both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are campaigning in battleground states today. The latest CBS News New York Times poll shows this: Hillary Clinton with a 3-point lead, 45% to 42%. She previously, however, had led this very same poll by 9 points just 2 weeks ago. Here to parse it all, an all-star panel worthy of World Series titles. Rick Davis, CBSN political contributor, former campaign manager to John McCain in 2008. Liz Smith, CBSN political contributor and a Democratic strategist. And last, and it says and here, least. Certainly least, CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris, although I do want to point out, it actually says on the script, joke. So that's just, I'm supposed, it's not a joke. I got a million of them.
It's not a joke.
All right, first to the news at hand. How many of you are sleepy, having watched history last night?
I was there in front of my TV.
Amen.
Amen.
Brother.
History in the making.
And yourself? Okay, no baseball fan, but that's fine.
Some of us didn't have any patience for the rain delay.
This man turned the game off as it went to extra innings, so I just want you to take take his expertise with however many grains of salt that would suggest. But I'll start with you, Steve.
Really?
Those numbers that we just saw, a race tightening, 9 points down to 3, everything, when you start looking battleground state to battleground state, it's the margin of error, and everywhere it would appear they are inside of it. How troubling for the Clinton campaign at this point?
Well, there's obviously some nerves, right? I mean, this is something they thought they had in the bag, I think, a few weeks ago, and now you're seeing these polls tightening for whatever reason, whether it's just whether it's the FBI story or whether it's just a collection of controversies surrounding Hillary Clinton. What definitely has not been happening in the last few weeks is we haven't been talking a lot about Donald Trump controversies. He successfully has turned the spotlight to her, and as we've seen consistently throughout this campaign, whoever has a spotlight on them seems to be doing worse in the polls. Now, the question for her is, can she get the traditional Democratic voters out enthusiastically for her? And I think what we're seeing in some of these polls is there might be some questions about that, whether it's African-American voters, whether it's these sort of soft voters who maybe just don't feel like, or maybe fatigued by this whole process. That's their concern, and you're seeing President Obama get out there. You're seeing Michelle Obama out there. You're seeing them hit places where they don't traditionally go in the last week, places like Michigan. So they're really trying to make sure they get turnout as high as they can in order to beat Trump.
And Liz, we're seeing those numbers. They are up in terms of the early vote. However, now it seems the math is, if the numbers certainly among African-American voters continues to lag behind, will a relative surge in Hispanic voting and what that would suggest for Hillary Clinton be enough?
Well, there are two things. The surge in Hispanic voting and Latino voters is very important for her. She's running better with Latino voters than Barack Obama was in 2012. It's projected right now that they're going to be, I think, 300,000 more Latino voters turning out for her. Also important is the big advantage that she has relative to Barack Obama in 2012 with college-educated white voters. And that's something we haven't been talking about a lot recently. We've been talking about sort of the depression in the Democratic base with black voters, and it remains to be seen. Look, Michelle Obama, Barack Obama are hitting the trail hard and trying to make the case for black voters that they need Hillary Clinton to build on his legacy and build on everything that they've accomplished over the last 8 years. So. And regarding the polling, look, the polls are all over the place, but we have seen in some of the polls that they've stabilized, and she's kind of stopped the bleeding. We saw that in the ABC poll that came out today, that her numbers have kind of rebounded. And so maybe we've kind of seen her hit rock bottom, and it might not go much lower. So she has a chance to rebound, and if the race stays stable, she's in a really good place to win.
They're back to early October levels, and still close, although obviously momentum, if you believe in Uncle Mo, is with the Trump campaign.
But that's the thing, is they said Mitt Romney had the same momentum at the end of 2012 when he was running hard in Minnesota and Wisconsin. He lost those states handily. He thought he was going to win Pennsylvania. So some of this is a little bit media generated.
Kick Mitt Romney one more time.
And so they shall. Interestingly, Rick, we see the relitigation to a degree of this email controversy, and we finally are getting some numbers that suggest not just where people stand, but how many minds may have changed. 82% of Democrats say their support unchanged. 81% of Republicans say their support for Donald Trump is unchanged, despite the recent spate of allegations of sexual misconduct regarding that candidate. If these are the surprises to come, respectively, for these two candidates, what does it suggest to you about wiggle room that remains for either?
Yeah, very little on the board to fight over. Independent voters and undecided voters really dislike both these candidates, right? They go into this with much higher negatives with independent voters than they do with their own party. One of the reasons why they're only 60% negative is because their own party says they like them. Independent voters by over 70% dislike both these guys. So it's the lesser of two evils. Mm-hmm. This is the only choice they have. No such thing as momentum in this campaign. Neither one of these candidates have connected with a single audience other than their base since the beginning of this campaign to this day. Right now, it's all about getting that base to the polls. This is a turnout game. Probably always has been, right? Their ability to motivate people to be for them has not been proven one single time in any poll I've ever seen. So what it is, a ground game, an air game, trying to get people to the polls. The early voting matters. And I would say decidedly advantage for Hillary Clinton. She has had a massive ground game, 800 paid staffers on the ground in Florida for a year. Almost 50 offices in North Carolina working to do one thing, identify voters and get them out for early voting. So compare that to Trump. He says, I don't need a ground organization. I don't need TV. I don't need to figure this out. They're all just going to show up for me. You know, I still think campaigns matter. And in this case, that's probably a decided advantage for Hillary.
And look at the messages that they've been giving the last couple of weeks, right? So for Hillary Clinton, it's imagine Donald Trump as president. That's what she's saying to her supporters. Those are the kinds of ads you're seeing during the World Series. You saw ads from Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump making that argument for Hillary Clinton.
It's what we expect to hear from Bernie Sanders on the stump with her today in North Carolina.
And President Obama's been saying that on the stump, and then you have Donald Trump saying, look at her and all her controversies. Do you want 4 years of this? Do you want investigations? Should she even be qualified to run for president? That's his argument. So in order to whip up their voters, they're making these arguments that really solely are pointing out the negatives of the other person.
So Liz, let's talk about North Carolina then, because if it's accepted that Donald Trump needs Florida, Hillary Clinton likely needs it as well. Pennsylvania lags right there if they're one and 1A.
Well, I mean, if she wins Florida, game over.
Game over.
Game over.
So if things start to break, though, for Donald Trump, as things stand right now, then North Carolina becomes all the more important. They are virtually tied there. It is a place where the Obama coalition, at least as early voting suggests, is not quite turning out as Hillary Clinton might hope. They're both going to be there today.
Yeah.
Are the gloves coming off today, if nothing else?
Well, I mean, the gloves came off. When were they ever on? The gloves came off even before the primaries ended. But North Carolina is interesting because it's seen a lot of demographic changes. Since 2012, the Latino population there has doubled, and that's a huge advantage for Hillary Clinton. Another thing there is, the research triangle. You have a lot of more educated, college-educated women who are going to turn out for Hillary Clinton. You also have a very interesting in-state dynamic there that you don't have in other states, and that is HB2. The governor's
the bathroom law,
if that's how you want to describe it, and that is that.
In 5 seconds.
Okay, the bathroom law. Okay, and that
they have Google. It's
right,
okay. Yeah.
And what we've seen is that is really driving out left-leaning Democrats in record numbers in terms of early voting, and has created an interesting dynamic in this state where we actually have a triple-up effect rather than just a trickle-down effect. And so it kind of makes it different from the other states, and that's why I think that she's got a really, really good shot at North Carolina, which was the first or second closest state in 2012.
So then, Rick, if things will converge today to a degree in North Carolina, for both candidates, there have been some interesting choices, though, of late. We've seen Donald Trump in some historically blue states, albeit states he at least probably believes he has to turn. But there he was in a straight dead red district yesterday in Florida. And he mocked his own advisors in his speech, saying, they didn't want me here, but I'm here anyway. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton's in Arizona, a state you know very well, a state that it would appear is all but done. If it may have been in play at some point, perhaps, it seems far less so now. You ran a campaign. I mean, what are these choices saying to you?
Part of what you have that's happening now is that the planning is outrunning the strategy, right? So you got to have a schedule, and the schedule tends to drive a lot of this part of the campaign, where you only have 5 days left, and you can't like turn around an entire.
So they commit to this Arizona trip.
So they commit to Arizona. Like, look,
before
2 weeks ago,
yeah.
They dumped every surrogate in the country into there. Their polling was tied. The early voting was decidedly Democratic, which was quite unusual. And they thought, wow, we can pull this off. Let's schedule Hillary in there next week. Next week came, everything changed. Now the polling is outside the margin of error for Trump, favorable. The early voting has turned the tide. Now there's 70,000 more Republican ballots than Democrat. That was different a week ago. So conditions on the ground change, right? And these campaigns don't have the kind of flexibility to be able to say, oh, cancel Arizona, we're going somewhere else. Now they should, right? But both of these campaigns are locked into this mentality that the Hillary Clinton campaign is a big battleship that can't turn quickly. Right. Trump can, but he won't. Right. I mean, he could actually show up anywhere tomorrow, and nobody would even.
Well, plays to his message, right? and certainly an over, a candidate and a campaign marked by its adherence and her adherence to optics, right, would be communicating weakness, perhaps. Right. I want to get you, Al, out of here on this one, but I asked you both yesterday. So quickly, Rick, is there a hidden Trump vote?
I don't think so. I mean, Trump usually gets what he gets in the polling. We always talk about these hidden votes. We had a lot of discussion about that in 2008. Wow, is America really going to vote for their first black president? And it did. And there was absolutely no difference between the polling that Barack Obama got and the outcome of the election. So I think a lot of that is just sort of October discussion. These campaigns have really alienated virtually every voter in America. And so it is a bit of a surprising outcome potentially, because you just don't have a normal set of conditions going into Election Day. But I don't think anything at this stage would be a surprise.
No truer words, but I think November surprise is about perhaps to enter the lexicon. Perhaps. Rick Davis, Liz Smith, Steve Chaggaris, we do appreciate the time.